From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good morning. This is Max Mashman, and these are your 12 o'clock headlines. Our top story. For all Vancouver residents, Corral Street between East Hastings and Pender has been closed due to what police are claiming is a serious incident. Police are yet to release information about the incident, but have said they intend to share details on it later today. Officials initially said the incident was in Gastown north of Cordova Street, though police are yet to release information publicly. City News is saying they have learned that the incident was a homicide. After months of escalating labor action and negotiations, a union at SFU is beginning a full work stoppage. Our reporter Richard Davis has more.
The Teaching Support Staff Union at Simon Fraser University announced a total work stoppage starting today. This means most lectures and research will be shut down, and some students are planning to strike in solidarity with the TSSU. Adriana Cumming-Tyker is an undergraduate student at SFU. She's worried about the effect the strike will have on students at the university and is creating a community space for queer students.
There is consideration that the university's actions might exacerbate students who are active suicide or self-harm risks. And so the idea of providing these community spaces is to offer a stopgap from total isolation that the university would otherwise be inflicting on these students.
According to the TSSU, there have been 41 negotiation sessions over 19 months. Richard Davis, 1680 The Crow.
And moving on to BC Ferries, which has announced it is temporarily retiring one of their largest vessels, the Spirit of Vancouver Island. The Spirit of Vancouver Island runs one of BC Ferries' busiest routes between Tsawwassen and Metro Vancouver and Schwartz Bay just north of Victoria and Sydney. According to Union President Eric McLeany, the changes to sailing schedules are likely to impact travelers heading to Victoria, Nanaimo, on the island in Langdale on the Sunshine Coast. The ship will be dry docked just after Thanksgiving long weekend and will be out of commission for at least a week, according to McNeely. A more firm timeline will be given after the boat is pulled out of the water and maintenance crews can inspect the boat. This has drawn some criticism from BC residents who say that for a system which is supposed to serve the same function as a highway, it is not living up to the task. But according to BC Ferries Union, repairs to the vessel are necessary, especially for the hull. In other boat-related news, the question of what to do with an Expo 86 Curiosity. Our reporter Lachlan Irvine has the story.
The McBarge that served McDonald's to Expo 86 visitors, now named Seabourn 2, has been waiting for a second life since the mid-2010s. Howard Meakin, the barge's owner, says that he and his partners are currently looking at multiple sites after a previous deal fell through.
We had a location lined up in Nanaimo next to BC Ferries. We had plans drawn up and we had the city on board, and the company that owned the site had cross-contaminated the BC Ferries parking lot. We've got another couple of sites that we're working on. One is on the mainland up by Squamish, and one is back in Falls Creek.
Meakin says that while the inside of the barge has been mostly gutted, the structure is in great condition, meaning it's ready to undergo a renovation once its future is more concrete. Lachlan Irvin, 1680 The Crow.
And yet another sea-based story. One New Westminster City Councillor is sounding the alarm and advocating for the historical preservation of a one-of-a-kind vessel. Our reporter Richard Davis has the story.
It's a quiet weekday morning on New Westminster's waterfront, with the occasional jogger passing by. Only a few stop to glance at New Westminster's museum ship. It's low tide on the Fraser, and the Samson 5 sits at a dock, slightly beached onto the river's mudflats. The steam-powered ship was built in 1937 and sold to the city in 1980 for $1. This summer, the ship suffered an oil leak, causing the Coast Guard to lead a cleanup. New West City Councillor Paul Minhas is calling for a full cost analysis to be run and wants to see the ship be taken care of.
And you can clearly see it's deteriorating and it's falling apart. Letting it fall apart is not the right thing to do. It's a great piece of history, and I believe that we need to take it out, dry dock it, do whatever we have to do.
There are currently no public plans to improve the ship's condition, something Minhas says would make the ship more inviting for visitors. Richard Davis, 1680 The Crow.
Now back to Vancouver, where an invasive species has landed upon the shores of Granville Island. Joseph Auguste has the story.
A growing number of wild rabbits have invaded Granville Island, and concern is rampant among residents. The rabbits are thought to have originated from people abandoning them after the responsibility of caring for them was too much. What started as a couple rabbits in the Ron Basford Park area have exploded to approximately 40 rabbits. Coyotes in the area have taken notice of the rabbits, and sightings of the wild dogs has increased with the growing rabbit population. Local authorities are asking those in the area not to engage with the animals, whether it be by feeding them or interacting with them in any way. Options for control are limited, with local shelters being completely full and the number of rabbits growing out of control. Joseph Augusti, 1680, The Crow.
And Joseph is joining us now. So, Joseph, what are the punishments for feeding the rabbits?
Hi, Matt. Feeding the wildlife in Vancouver parks and beaches are strictly prohibited and carries a fine of $500.
Wow. And why has there been such an increase in the rabbit population?
Yeah, so the rabbits are breeding fast, and as more people keep dropping off their pet rabbits in the area, there will only be more potential mates. It will drive the population up even further if not regulated.
All right. Thank you so much, Joseph. Have an amazing rest of your day. In more provincial news, a leaked provincial memo appears to show that a new mask mandate will start to be enforced October 3rd. The memo, which was leaked to CBC by a retired physician, appears to detail masking requirements for all healthcare workers, visitors, contractors, and volunteers in all patient, client, and resident care starting on October 3rd. This after BC's Health Minister Adrian Dix hinted at new rules for the province's healthcare centres, which are set to be announced today. The memo also detailed that masking would be required at all clinics and that patients' masking would be left to the discretion of healthcare workers. A new coffee shop has recently opened in Vancouver. Our reporter, Alicia Nolasco, spoke with the founder to talk about the difficulties that comes along with opening a new business.
Kama Cafe, a Korean-themed shop located in Oak Street, has been welcoming people with their opening for the last couple weeks. With the new business tax increase and several fees going up, Sky Sun, owner of the cafe, says it has been a rough start.
It was definitely hard when we were doing some loans, but it didn't stop me at the beginning. But yeah, it definitely have impacted. I wish the interest rate was lower. But it is what it is, right? So it hasn't changed my timing or my view of opening the coffee shop.
Sun says the shop has already been receiving positive comments from the neighborhood. Alicia Nolasco, 1680, The Crow.
In national news, Hyundai and Kia are recalling 600,000 cars in Canada due to an issue with the anti-lock braking mechanism. Documents posted by the American safety regulator say the mechanism sometimes leaks fluid, which can lead to fires when the car is parked or being driven. An additional 1.6 million Hyundai and 1.7 million Kias are being recalled in the United States. And in other national news, the case of Colonel Leif Dahl of the Canadian Forces. Dahl was temporarily removed from his position at CFP Trenton after police alleged he had fired at endangered wildlife in late August while aboard a boat on a canal in Ontario. Police allege the colonel was carrying a .22 rifle and a revolver on the boat that day. Dahl is set to make his first court appearance today, where he will face 8 charges, including obstructing police, hunting a bird without a license, and handling a rifle in a careless manner. And in entertainment news, the annual Vancouver International Film Festival begins today and will feature an array of new films and discussions about the industry. Lachlan Irvine previews this year's lineup.
The timing of this year's VIFF couldn't have been scheduled more perfectly, fresh off the Writers Guild of America strike ending and the Screen Actors Guild's likely to follow. In all, 231 films will be screened at venues across the city, ranging from drama to comedy to animation, including 28 world premieres. One of the most anticipated local premieres is I Just Came for the Riot, an ESPN Films production about the 2011 Stanley Cup riots. The documentary has already sold out 2 of its first 3 screenings. The Vancouver International Film Festival runs from September 28th to October 8th. Lachlan Irvine, 1680, The Crow.
And in more entertainment news, Michael Gambon, the actor who played Dumbledore in the Harry Potter series, has been announced dead this morning at 82. According to the family of the actor, he died peacefully in the hospital after a bout of pneumonia. And now for the world of sports, where the Vancouver Canucks are expected to place goaltender Spencer Martin on waiver unless a trade materializes in the next few hours. This following the announcement of the date for the induction ceremony of legendary Canucks goaltender Roberto Luongo into the Ring of Honor. And now for baseball, where the Toronto Blue Jays have announced that if they make it to the playoffs, their radio team will come on the road with them. The radio team used to travel with the team for every game before the pandemic put a stop to the practice. Fraser, after the announcement of a new CPL expansion franchise, Vancouver FC, a new fan club is forming, the Fraser Valley Fanatics. Joseph Auguste has the scoop.
Soccer is already the most played sport in Canadian youth, and now with new CPL club Vancouver FC, more options are available for Canadian soccer fans. Supporting the expansion club is supporters group the Fraser Valley Fanatics. David Marchand, a founding member of the Fraser Valley Fanatics supporters group, is part of a diverse group of soccer fans cheering on the club.
I guess we're made up of soccer supporters from all over. There's new supporters like myself, relatively new to soccer. I didn't grow up playing it. We have people that, watch the Whitecaps for quite some time. We're happy to have a more local team in the Valley. Have some people that watch, European football and TSS Rovers and just all over. It's a good multicultural, multi-soccer group for sure.
With the World Cup in 2026 being partially hosted in Canada, the CPL may have a big role to play in growing the game across the country. Joseph Auguste for 1680, The Crow.
And now for the weather. It is 13 degrees and cloudy in Vancouver with rain expected into the afternoon and a mix of sun and clouds into the evening. Mild winds persist at around 15 kilometers an hour. The weather is expected to improve tomorrow, leading to a bright and clear skies for the weekend, but the rain is expected to come back on Monday. This is Max Mashman. You are listening to 1680 The Crow, and these were your 12 o'clock headlines.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
This is 1680 The Crow, and you're listening to our feature presentation.
There's a lot of people who are struggling to pay rent. I get calls all the time. You know, I'm a mom and I have a child. I've been working. I lost my job, and the landlord's going to kick me out next month. Well, what the heck? She's going to be homeless with a kid.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Crow Chronicles. I'm Alicia Nolasco.
And I'm Kevin Pontius. What you just heard was an excerpt of an interview with Jim Mandolin, who works for the Homeless Services Association of BC. Jim is also a former addict and gave us some great insight on our topic today.
So today we're talking about homelessness in Vancouver, which has been a controversial topic for a while. So according to a study from SFU, the homeless crisis in Vancouver started in the 1980s, and it has gotten worse progressively.
Alicia, why do you think the homeless problem has gotten progressively worse over the years?
Well, prior to the 1980s, the federal government invested generously in the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation. This helped adequate affordable housing, and there was a moment where it stopped. So by the 1990s, the province was now taking care of housing. And I believe it's one of the main reasons it started to get so bad.
Over the years, we've had this stereotype when it comes to the homeless that you shouldn't be giving homeless people money because they're going to spend it on drugs or alcohol and they don't know how to manage money. Even growing up, I just feel like I was always told to never give a homeless person money, give them food or water because they're going to spend the money and just get drugs or alcohol. There was recently a study published by the Foundations for Social Change with UBC that actually proves the opposite of the stereotype.
The study gave 50 people who had been homeless for under 2 years $7,500 and tracked them to see what they did with it. They also tracked other 65 people who did not receive a cash transfer. The study also proved that the stereotypes are not connected to the reality, given that many of the people use the money on rent, food, and clothing.
We recently had the opportunity to speak with one of Vancouver's most renowned homeless advocates, Judy Graves. Given her decades of experience in the scene, we asked her what she thought about giving cash transfers to the unhoused.
I don't think that cash transfer is going to work for someone who has a severe addiction. The addiction will always take precedence, but most people who become homeless do not have severe addictions. So this would be a wonderful prevention program. So someone who's never been in the downtown east side before in their life will wind up there because it's the only affordable scrap of housing for them, and just to have a roof over their heads.
The biggest issue with Vancouver is that most of the time when people see a person in a homeless situation, they automatically assume that they don't have a job or are lazy. Most of the time, these people have severe mental health issues or addictions. I don't think anyone wakes up and decides to go through these circumstances.
Absolutely. Something that both Jim and Judy talk about is the main difference between being homeless and having an addiction. In many cases, they're both combined. Someone who's already struggling to pay bills and one day gets fired can end up in the streets. I believe that we need to do a better job at supporting our community, no matter what issues you might have.
I 100% agree. That is why this cash transfer project works great for people who need the money right away and don't have any addiction.
Yeah, our homeless population is mostly contained in Vancouver downtown east side. And according to stats from the city, the government approximately spends $55,000 in each person per year. If we follow a project like the Foundation for Social Change did, this might be the solution that will benefit both the government and the vulnerable to save money.
I totally agree. Because with this, the government could invest in giving immediate help to people with addictions instead of mindlessly funding shelters.
Our guest speakers talk a little bit more in depth about this situation.
I know there's some big treatment centers, but sometimes there's like you're an addict and you decide, okay, I got to change my life. I want to go get some help. So they go to an addiction recovery place and they say, okay, you can come for help, but 1 month or 2 months or 4 months waiting list. So go back out and try to survive try to stop the drugs and alcohol or whatever the addiction is on your own, and then come back in 3 to 4 months. Well, that's not going to work. Someone's ready to go into recovery now. There is very little help for that.
The thing that we've been asking for is detox on demand. That as soon as somebody decides that they want to leave the drugs behind, they need to be able to get in at that moment. It's a passing moment. They need to be able to get into detox immediately and be moved through to treatment immediately, housed away from the drug scene. If we were able to do that, we would save so many lives. We would save so many families. And it's not rocket science.
I don't know for you, but for me, it's incredible to me that both Judy and Jim have been working in all sorts of scenarios as advocates and share the same opinion when it comes to addicts not getting immediate help. What is your take on this, Kevin?
I think looking back at the study, it proved that the people they supported with the cash transfers ended up saving the government more money because it helped them get housing and other resources faster. This compared to the other people they tracked who did not receive any money and just had the support systems that are already there in place, to me proves that what Judy and Jim are saying is dead on.
100%, Kevin. The current system might not be working for everyone, and the answer to this is because many people don't feel safe going to shelters, especially when you're having a hard time dealing already with mental health issues and addiction. And our guest, Jim, was very open and candid about his experience in a shelter.
There's many people. Some people don't want to even go in shelters. They won't go in shelters. I wouldn't go in shelters when I was a kid. I went into a Catholic Charities shelter when I was in 1970. And because I was molested in my life from all kinds of weird people before 15, then I didn't, like I'd laid down on the mat, and then there's all these men in there, and they're moving around in the dark, and I'm going like, they're going to come and touch me. So I couldn't stay. And I never stayed.
There's no easy way to follow such a horrific and candid story. We just want to take a second to really thank Jim for being so vulnerable and open with us.
And that is why we need to be empathetic about why some people just straight up decide to live in the streets. It's very easy to judge anything, really, but we never know what someone's going through. Judy Graves also talked to us about how people living under these circumstances get an urge to get better, but given the lack and shortage of resources, the desires can't be met.
I do know from working with so many people who were addicted that every person who is addicted sometime during this year is going to wake up and say, I can't do this anymore. I've got to get out of this, and start trying to get into a detox. And they're going to be met with, well, we don't have a bed. We don't have space. No, you can't even sleep on the carpet.
I think the main thing we have learned from researching this podcast and interviewing our amazing guests is that we need to try new things. There's no direct solution to the problem, and it's an extremely complex issue. But if we keep doing the same things, we're not going to improve anyone's lives.
For sure. I think we could have more universities doing studies. Hopefully with some government funding, we could really start to understand what works and what doesn't. Because we already know what doesn't work, but we aren't doing enough to change it.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Crow Chronicles. I'm Kevin Pontius.
And I am Alicia Nolasco. See you next time.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon. I am Alicia Nolasco for 1680 The Crow, delivering you the noon headlines. The updated Pfizer-BioNTech community vaccine has now been approved by Health Canada for people of 6 months of age or older. After the updated version of the Moderna vaccine approved earlier this month, Pfizer is the second vaccine approved by Health Canada. According to the provided federal agency, this vaccine is formulated for the lineage of the Omicron variant. All invasive species has invaded the shores of Granville Island. Joseph Agosti has the story.
A growing number of wild rabbits have invaded Granville Island, and concern is rampant among residents. The rabbits are thought to have originated from people abandoning them after the responsibility of caring for them was too much. What started as a couple rabbits in the Ron Basford Park area have exploded to approximately 40 rabbits. Coyotes in the area have taken notice of the rabbits, and sightings of the wild dogs has increased with the growing rabbit population. Local authorities are asking those in the area not to engage with the animals, whether it be by feeding them or interacting with them in any way. Options for control are limited, with local shelters being completely full and the number of rabbits growing out of control. Joseph Augusti, 1680, The Crow.
In more provincial news, a leaked provincial memo appears to show that a new mask mandate will start to be enforced October 3rd. The memo, which was leaked to CBC by a retired physician, appears to detail masking requirements for all healthcare workers, visitors, contractors, and volunteers in outpatient clinic and resident care starting in October 3rd. This after BC's Health Minister Adrian Dix hinted at new rules for the province's healthcare centres, which are said to be announced today. The City of Vancouver just announced a provincial investment of $14 million into the Critical Food Infrastructure Fund for local community organizations. This will help people living in low incomes and struggling to put food on the table to have better access to nutritious food. The Critical Food Infrastructure Fund will provide grants to local organizations to increase their capacities to provide better food for those who need it. One New Westminster City Councillor is sounding the alarm and advocating for the historical preservation of a one-of-a-kind vessel. Our reporter Richard Davis has more.
It's a quiet weekday morning on New Westminster's waterfront, with the occasional jogger passing by. Only a few stop to glance at New Westminster's museum ship. It's low tide on the Fraser, and the Samson 5 sits at a dock, slightly beached onto the river's mudflats. The steam-powered ship was built in 1937 and sold to the city in 1980 for $1. This summer, the ship suffered an oil leak, causing the Coast Guard to lead a cleanup. New West City Councillor Paul Minhas is calling for a full cost analysis to be run and wants to see the ship be taken care of.
And you can clearly see it's deteriorating and it's falling apart. Letting it fall apart is not the right thing to do. It's a great piece of history, and I believe that we need to take it out, dry dock it, do whatever we have to do.
There are currently no public plans to improve the ship's condition, something Minhas says would make the ship more inviting for visitors. Richard Davis, 1680 The Crow.
The Screen Actors Guild American Federation of Radio and Television Artists has announced that the strike negotiations with the studios will resume Monday. They also announced that many studio executives are going to attend. Writers Guild of America member Marlise Boland says she's astonished by what the negotiation committee accomplished with the new agreement.
They just rocked it. I'm so proud to be part of this guild, and I feel like they've saved our industry, not just for those of us that are here today, but for the young filmmakers. I have a daughter that's in film school right now, and they've saved this industry for the future artists of the world.
The 3-year deal with studios, producers, and streaming services includes significant wins in the main areas writers had fought for: compensation, length of employment, size of staffs, and control of artificial intelligence, matching or nearly equaling what they had sought at the outset of the strike. Looking at the weather now, conditions mostly cloudy with a temperature of 14 degrees, humidity at 14%, and wind going at 16 kilometers per hour. Later today will be cloudy with 30% chances of showers. Thank you so much for listening. I am Alicia Nolasco for 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.